Hey gang, welcome to the Gill Athletics Connections podcast, where we continue to bring you the stories of track coaches from around the world. I am your host, Mike Cunningham. It is my honor and privilege to bring you the stories of these men and women from around the world. Just got done. Can't wait for you to listen to this great podcast with Andrew Craycraft. He's the head coach of Millikin University right here in Illinois. I've known Andrew for a few years, but learned so much about him. I think you're going to really enjoy. We really delved into his athletic career, which was amazing, actually, from a barely sub 2 half miler to a sub 150 half miler, but also his his academic progress. And little known secret, he actually is a practicing lawyer. Maybe not practicing now, but he passed the bar exam and was a practicing lawyer for quite a while. And we even discuss the Wu-Tang Clan. Now, how are you going to miss out listening to this podcast? Keep listening and let me know what you think in the comments, or review us on iTunes or the podcast of your choice. And for right now, please help me welcome the wise and the wonderful Andrew Craycraft. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, I'm here.
Hey, man. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you, Mike?
Oh, dealing with the new world order that we're all dealing with right now. So, which I can't imagine. We obviously have disruptions here at Gill, but I don't have 18 to 22-year-olds and their parents to try to explain the unexplainable like you and your peers do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been really hard.
Absolutely. So, hey, thanks for joining us here on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast, man. It really means the world to us that you would spend some time with us here. I know you do potentially have a little bit more free time right now to try to look on the bright side. But I do know you're extremely busy. Recruiting doesn't stop. I know that. So really appreciate you spending some time just learning more about you and exploring your career as a college track and field coach.
Yeah, really excited to be a part of it.
Awesome. So maybe we take a step in the Wayback Machine. Let's talk about how you got into track and field. I know you competed at University of North Carolina, but even take a step back, where'd you go to high school and what kind of events did you do? How'd you get into track and field?
Sure. So I think the introduction to track and field came by way of, I was a soccer player growing up, and we really didn't have any opportunities to run at the middle school level. This was in Weston, Connecticut, which is what they'd consider a bedroom community of New York City. So southwestern Connecticut. Most of the families in our community, again, commuted into the city, as far as our parents, and that's kind of why we'd moved to that area. So yeah, I was a soccer player growing up, but always had coaches that, kind of pointed out that I had some kind of aptitude for running. So spring of my freshman year of high school came around, and I had given up on baseball. I just had sort of fallen out of love with baseball. And I think our high school really only offered track and baseball in the spring. So I went out and tried it out, and can't say that I loved it right away, but
thanks for that honesty.
Yeah, there's a lot of things working against me early on, but I don't think they knew where to put me. So I was kind of I'll just call it a sprinter, a versatile sprinter. I'd run anything from, the 4x1 to I think the 800 was the longest I ran as a freshman. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we were figuring a lot of things out my freshman year. It wasn't a real competitive team, but some really good people, and the coaches were awesome people. And so, it was a good enough experience for me to stick with it, and we kind of went at it from there.
As you went through that freshman exploratory period, figuring out what your event might be and whether you liked it, whether maybe you made a mistake and thought you should go back to baseball. What did you get to try all the events? Like, did you hurdle and jump as well, or was it mainly just keep this kid on the flat? Let him run straight lines, maybe.
Yeah, I had never thought about maybe they had already sized me up and thought, well, this kid's not coordinated to do anything but run. But for the first year, they just had me running, and I got into high jumping later on. In part because it was a small roster. We didn't have a lot of people to fill some events. And so got to jump later on in my career. But for the beginning, it was 4x1, occasionally a 4x2. It wasn't a real traditional event, I don't think, in high school from my memory, in Connecticut. And then I kind of became a quarter miler by the end of the year. We had a 4x4 that was starting to get a little bit better. And I had resented the 800 from the very beginning, but unfortunately that became my event.
I was about to say, what did you end up settling on? Because I thought it was the 800 was kind of your primary.
It was. I was resisting throughout my high school career becoming a half miler, but my coaches were smart enough to see that, the line was essentially, kid, you're not fast enough to be a quarter miler in college, and you better run in college. So get used to the idea. So that's eventually what I got pushed further and further towards.
Well, I could see you resisting the 800 because, the 800 is one of the 3 or 4 events that always gets put into what is the toughest event in track and field. The 800, 400 hurdles always comes up in there. So, then of course the mile and all that stuff. But 800 is always in that conversation of what is the hardest event to do.
Absolutely.
So you ended up being a half miler as a primary. That means you probably ran the mile and of course the 4x4s and those kind of things. Were you also still doing soccer in the fall through high school, or when did you focus just on track, if you did?
Yeah. I played soccer all 4 years. The cross country coach was pretty persistent in trying to get me to go out for that. But I love soccer. I love the team aspect of it. And my freshman year, we didn't have an indoor track program, even though it's a pretty big deal in Connecticut. There's a pretty good indoor circuit, and there's an official state meet. So sophomore year, we got a club program going. And I remember we wore T-shirts, and I think I was wearing like a pair of Kepa soccer shorts to compete in. So, maybe just above the knee or just past the knee. I don't remember which. I used to mess with my shorts while I was racing, and my coach would yell at me because they'd ride up, and I'm this self-conscious sophomore in high school, so I was chugging them down during the races. But yeah, I was primarily, really a quarter miler early on, and really tried to stay in that category. But no cross country in high school, just kind of, again, long sprinter. Connecticut back then, we had a 500 indoors, and I'd really kind of found that was a pretty good event for me. So enjoyed the 500 and, kept getting better year in and year out. And we did this really interesting thing in Connecticut where, we're part of the New England region. And so at least back then, I don't know how they changed it, indoors, if you were, I think, top 3. So Connecticut, we had class meets. So, 1A, 2A, 3A, like you have in Illinois, we had class meets where you compete at the state level against schools of your size. And then the top 3 in your class would go on to a state open championship where everybody got to compete against each other.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was really nice because you get a true state champion from it. And it's a smaller state, so I think it's more of an option for us. But if you were top 3 at the open championships, you got to compete at the New England championships. And Connecticut, like the 500, I don't think the rest of New England did. So what we did to go to New England's is if you placed in the 500, you would run a 600 against people that were running the 800 in the other state. It was a really bizarre thing, but yeah. So I got 1 600 under my belt by the end of high school, and found out that there were other things that were painful beyond just the 800 and 400. So.
I'm always amazed at those, I call them unique distances, the 5, 6, 1,000, that some high schools and even some, Power 5 conferences will do. NAIA even does it for nationals. I think they do 1,000. Just always interesting to me because it's, there is no other place to do, it's not an Olympic event. It's not a World Indoors, USATF, et cetera. It's just always unique to me that they would do those very unique distances. And New England seems to do more of them. There's a lot more 4x8s and those type of events up there. So you end up, after you're going into your senior year, you had some options to go to college and run. What options did you have, and where did you end up choosing?
So I was a kind of marginal student. I was a little bit better than average. And I was
You're saying students. Are you talking about academically?
So I was really looking at track as,
right.
and I wasn't, I mean, coming out of high school, I wasn't highly, I don't think I was like this huge prospect. I ran 49.0, 158. I ran, I think 65 or 66 in the 500, and then like a 82. Yeah, about an 82 in the 600. I wasn't highly sought after, I don't think. But I had talked to some coaches, gone on some recruiting visits, and was trying to utilize track as a way to kind of leverage my way into a school that I probably wouldn't have gotten into without running. And I had centered a lot of my focus on Philadelphia. I can't remember exactly why that was. I think I wanted to be in a city. And so my dream school at the time was Penn. I really wanted to go to Penn. I had talked to Charlie Powell.
Oh, yeah. I know Charlie, good guy. Yeah.
I was fairly ignorant about the sport, from a bigger perspective, but I kind of knew he was a really good coach. So
right.
Penn was a kind of the dream option. And I think ultimately I didn't have the SAT score to get in. So visited St. Joseph's University in Philly and really, really liked that campus and met some pretty cool guys on that team. And it came down to basically St. Joe's and UConn. And the thought of going to a college where I'd recognize a lot of people from my high school, it didn't really appeal to me. So, and one of my competitors in Connecticut, who was not very, didn't exhibit a lot of sportsmanship. He was a big rival of mine. He just wasn't very nice. I caught word that he was going to UConn. So I thought, well, this is an easy choice.
No way.
Exactly. So yeah, ended up at St. Joe's. They're a member of the Atlantic 10. Mike Glavin is the coach, is still the coach there. And Glavin's he's a great coach. He's really, really, he knows the sport and I mean everything. I mean, at St. Joe's, we really didn't do field events. We did everything from 60 meters to 10,000 meters, and he could coach all of it. Bob Hamer, who's now the head coach at Rider University, great guy, was the assistant coach at the time and really helped Glavin with the long distance athletes. But yeah, Glavin would coach everybody from sprints to all the way into the distance events. And so St. Joe's was a good fit. Glavin, I think, borrowed a lot of sort of the concepts that, and I only figured this out after the fact, but kind of the Clyde Hart kind of principles. And he saw that I was probably a little bit more competitive with my times in the 400. So he trained me like a long sprinter when I got to college. And it made a big difference. I was a 158 guy in the half in high school as a senior. And my freshman year, our very first outdoor meet, I ran 149 on a DMR.
So hold on, let me make sure we're hearing this right. You were a 158.00 or 150.8?
No, 158 as in like
miler.
2 seconds faster than 2 flat.
And you ran sub 150, and yeah, I get it that it's a split on a relay, but still that differential is huge. Your first outdoor meet.
Yeah, it was a big
Wow.
progress. I dropped quite a bit of time indoors. I think my FAT indoors was 153 but I wasn't paying a lot of attention to the time. I mean, obviously I was excited about that. But yeah, he trained me like a long sprinter. I didn't know what mileage was. I legitimately did not know what mileage was. I didn't know that 800 runners could run 50 miles a week or anything like that. So he trained me like a long sprinter. I didn't go out on long runs. We did a lot of hills, a lot of strength work. We were on the track just about every day during the track season. St. Joe's doesn't have an indoor facility. So, one of the stories I tell my athletes still is if it's snowing in Philly, there's ice on the track, it's not, we're getting out of practice. It's Glavin standing there with a couple of shovels in front of him saying, let's get going, guys.
Here's your warm up.
We've got a perfectly nice outdoor track. Get at it, guys.
Yeah. Wow. That is a dramatic drop in the first year. That's really interesting.
It makes me, obviously I'm thankful for Glavin, kind of not trying to put me into a category that I wasn't in. So, 800's a very interesting event because there's so many different, I think there's probably minimum 5 categories of half milers. And he put me in a good group, and we had some really good quarter milers at the time. I think we had a couple guys at St. Joe's at the time that were, splitting 46 on the 4x4, running 47 in the open. And
wow,
it's a small program that doesn't get a lot of credit.
What is this? You said Atlantic 10, so this is Division 1, right? Yeah. Oh wow, yeah. Wow, those are good times. Yeah, I'll tell you another thing, not to gloss over what you said there. It tells you about, and you're talking about the coach you had there, and he's still there, which that alone is amazing. Today coaches, I think the tenure at each institution is getting shorter and shorter at each place. But you mentioned that he utilized a form of the Clyde Hart Baylor 400 meter type training, which again is just another example of the influence that man has had over literally thousands of athletes and coaches around the world. Even, I mean, it's a really amazing.
And like I said, it made a big difference. Glavin would basically, I was the oddball, Connecticut, man, what are you doing here down in Philly? We were basically 90% South Jersey and Philly suburbs, the whole roster. So I was definitely the oddball coming in from Connecticut. Glavin's very, very good coach, definitely understands the events. And, he's had some national qualifiers for mostly distance, but it took, I guess is a good way to put it, competing, training with some really talented guys. And even though he was really kind of getting me ready for the 800, I was going out battling with guys that ran a faster quarter mile than me. And to me, it was just about, hey, be as good as you can on a day-to-day basis. And here's a bunch of guys that are better than you that can push you along the way. So.
Yeah. And what were you studying? Did you have a major
freshman year? I was
at this point?
Undecided and really didn't know what I wanted at the time.
So no automatic bend to I am going to coach
track
and field one day. That just still kind of open to anything
absolutely.
At that point.
Yeah, I'd been leaning towards the idea of going to law school, but I didn't know what kind of majors that entailed. I didn't know what plans of study, and so freshman year I was just doing some of the core requirements and knocking out some classes that were required at that point.
What influence did your family have on that? Was your mom or dad a lawyer or anything like that, or what?
No, we had probably like a lot of high schoolers had done some debate classes, and I took a government course and thought it was interesting. I liked the idea of researching an argument and sort of having an intellectual debate instead of just sort of an emotional fist fight. So. I like that. I like that idea, and that was kind of all I was going off of. But yeah, as far as family, my father he's an IT guy. Started off as a programmer and then got into some other things, working mostly in the banking industry. So he encouraged me in my sophomore year as a backup plan, because I hadn't declared through my first semester of sophomore year to take a programming class, and this was in Java. And to this day, it's the worst I've ever done in any class in my academic history. So I think I was a little bit of a disappointment for my father at that point in time.
Yeah, I doubt that. Maybe in this class, but overall, I definitely doubt that. You said Java. That's interesting. What year is this?
So
what year is your sophomore year?
It was, I can tell you, it was 2001 because I was sitting in that class when everything went down with 9/11.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was a computer science engineering major for 1 year and took programming classes, but this was back in 94, 95. Java, I don't think was invented. That's why you said Java. I was like, wait a minute, we ain't even heard of Java back then. We were doing basic for your basic intro to programming, and then C++ is what my major class was at that point. And then quickly realized that I would have been a disappointment to your dad as well, just to put us on the same level there. I also, not for me, not at all. So when did you declare a major, and how is your sophomore and junior year going for track and field?
So second semester sophomore year, St. Joseph's is a Catholic university. It's a Jesuit school, so Xavier, Gonzaga, Georgetown, these are some of the national schools you would have heard of that are in that Jesuit category. So it was required of us to take theology courses, and I had a professor who was, a priest and teach a theology course. I don't remember the name of it, but I really, really liked this guy, and I was the last person to buddy up or schmooze with professors. I just wasn't my personality, and I'd grown pretty close to him and talked to him a lot after class and in office hours, and confided in him that I felt really lost, didn't know what to do, and so I approached him one day and I told him I was thinking about law school, and he just asked the simple question, what do you enjoy? And I just told him, well, history is interesting. I like reading stories. I like the idea of learning from our past. And he's like, well, there you go. Study history. And I thought, well, don't I have to do a political science degree or for law school? And he's like, no, not at all. Like, just, if anything, be well-read, if you're thinking about law school. So yeah, it was that moment that I decided I would declare. And I honestly can't remember the professor's name, but great guy. You might get a kick out of this because I think you and I have some similar musical tastes. This gentleman, this professor of mine, allowed me to write a term paper on the Wu-Tang Clan.
No way.
I got to analyze some of the Wu's songs and how they touch on Black theology. So yeah, it was really fun.
Is that right?
And yeah,
that's interesting. Not only, like you said, we share musical interests in that sense, but also interesting to me that a conceivably conservative college would even allow and sounds like encourage that kind of study. I mean, that's
he's
so
a great.
cool. Wow.
I should look him up and send him a note.
Yeah. Do you still have that paper?
Somewhere I do. Yeah.
Yeah, you should put that on social media somewhere, just as like a throwback Thursday or something. Like, hey, you want to know how crazy I am? Here's my term paper or whatnot on the Wu-Tang Clan as it relates to theology.
Hey,
awesome,
I will. I promise
that.
I will do that. As long, I don't want to look back on it and go, "Gosh, I was a terrible writer back then." I still am. But if there's some literacy there, if you can actually follow it, I'll definitely look for it because it was fun. There's some really, really, if you listen to the lyrics, these guys are, and I don't think a lot of them have traditional educations. Like they are students. They really, one of the artists, he's kind of not in the inner circle. I don't know what they call it, but his name is Killa Priest. And gosh, this guy is basically taken the entire Bible, picked it apart, and applied these again concepts of Black theology to it. And so anyway, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but professors, they don't realize what kind of impact they have on your life. But he was a cool guy.
Absolutely, yeah. I challenge you to go find out who that was and find a way to drop him a note and just. For that alone, that would make his day. That'd be so cool. And talking about the artist educational background, I'm always surprised and yet not surprised at musical artists and even actors and actresses' educational background. It always stuck with me. I used to listen to a little bit of Rage Against the Machine back in the day, and either one or multiple members of that group have like Harvard degrees or Ivy League degrees. And I remember the first time I heard, I was like, "Are you kidding me? Really?" And then you find out more and more artists. Not everyone, obviously, because maybe that's a profession you go into because you don't want to go to a traditional degree route. But like I said, I'm always surprised, but yet not surprised when someone's like, "Yeah, the head of Wu-Tang is a Princeton grad." It's like, wow, that's
so cool.
Would not have suspected that, but yeah, that's really cool. So you end up picking a history major for to get your degree in. How's your track career at St. Joseph's?
Good. Sophomore year. I was able to, for the most part, pick up where I left off as a freshman and, again, inching more and more towards really calling myself a half miler because I didn't have that leg speed in the quarter. But I got my 400 down into the 47s and ran 148 as a sophomore in the open and split 147. I forget what meet that was. I think would have been Penn. And then again at IC4As, we had a really good 4x8. We ran 725 and won the 4x8 at IC4As. And again, St. Joe's, you don't think about these kinds of things. And it was cool. It was something, we liked being an underdog. And remember, I got the stick. Georgetown had kind of become a rival because I think they had 4 or 5 guys under 150 back then. And we got the stick behind them and Princeton and Columbia and UConn, and got to kick a bunch of those guys down. So IC4As was a really cool experience. And just little old St. Joe's winning the IC4A title back when it was a big time, because that was 2002 was the last year before the regional format was introduced. Yeah.
Oh, so, right. That's right. Yeah, that's super interesting. So you're getting towards your senior year, getting ready to graduate. Still no thoughts of coaching track and field?
No,
or
I was a history major. I transferred at that point to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and which was St. Joe's had a lot of great things, but it was more of a social thing. I mentioned that so much of the enrollment at St. Joe's is from local schools, and I didn't feel like I was getting the college experience of really opening my perspective on the greater world, because everybody kind of knew each other, and there was, no disrespect to the university, but it just didn't seem like a fit anymore. And I felt like I was kind of, my growth as a person was stunted. Loved the team, loved my teammates, thought the coaches were doing a great job, and obviously was improving immensely. But UNC was really a move to be able to get a bigger vision of the world. And, I had grown up a Tar Heel fan, loved Michael Jordan, and always knew that it was a great school.
Of course. Right.
It was one of the best public schools.
Yeah.
So,
top academically, athletically, beautiful, not only campus, but the area it's in. Definitely North Carolina is a top institution for a lot of people. Absolutely. So who was coaching you when you were there? Yeah, is that right? That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So how long were you? Was it just your senior year, or how many seasons did you get in?
Junior and senior year, I was there, and was in that history track, and was around some amazing athletes. Our men's team wasn't nearly as strong as our women. The women won the ACC Triple Crown my senior year, and our women's distance program was arguably the best in the country at the time. Shalane and Alice, and
wow.
So there's 4 or 5 Olympians on that Carolina team when I was there.
Is this right after, I think, was her name Erin Donahue?
Awesome.
I think was 8. Anybody who can rate top level 8 or 15, I can't remember which one, but then also score at the national meet and the javelin is going to be interesting to me. Like, that's just, those are unique individuals. And so she always stood out. I think she was from Jersey. If
she
I
was
correctly. So that just always stuck out to me, that what a, unique individual that can do both at a high level, not just do both, but again, I think I'm pretty sure she made all.
She did. Yeah. She won an ACC title in the jab one year.
Well, that's no easy task either. That's a heck of a girls conference.
Yeah. She's an incredible person.
Wow. That's awesome. So, senior year, what are you doing in the half mile? Are you placing in the ACC? Are you making it to nationals? Where are you at athletically?
Things unfortunately took kind of a wrong, I guess I'd say a wrong turn. I'd had an injury in my junior year that they were having a hard time kind of figuring out, and originally to my hamstring, but then it became a little bit of a back issue, and there's some hip alignment problems. And so I'd gotten down to 148 indoors, and won ACCs my first season. So things were going pretty well through indoor season. I got kind of unlucky indoors because I think I was 17th or 18th, and didn't go indoors. And then when they fixed the hips and kind of released some tension that had been created by some of the problems I had, that's when the hamstring became a real problem. So regionals didn't go all that well. again, I'd been running consistent. I probably ran 15 to 20 sub 150s, but, it hadn't really popped into that next category. And I really hurt myself at regionals trying to go for it, and went home disappointed, and didn't wait long enough to let the hamstring heal, and went out and started training that summer, and created a lot of problems for myself as far as just some asymmetries in my biomechanics. And senior year didn't go well. I remember I got nipped at the line, indoor conference. Guy named Brendan Mahoney, my guy Brendan. He was a heck of a runner, but he had no business passing me at the line. He and I have had many conversations about that. But
does he always reply with, but I did?
Oh, and by the way, I ran 3:58 for the miles. So what do you got there? Anyway, senior year, it wasn't what I wanted, but I was so happy being at Carolina. I loved my team, and owe so much to Coach Witt he's such a good person. His coaching resume is as good as anything you could compare it to, but he always put me as a person well before anything else. One of my favorite memories of Coach Witt, and we're having a coaching podcast, so I want to say this, and I've shared this story with a lot of people. I got very emotional. He called me. I told you I was kind of a marginal student, and I knew going to Carolina was going to be a pretty big step up academically. So I really committed myself to new study habits and working harder. And I remember I had made the dean's list for the first time in my collegiate career, and was all ACC academic, this, that, and the other thing. And it was sometime around Christmas break when we found all this out. And Coach Witt called me. I think it was like Christmas Eve or the day before Christmas. I didn't think he was even paying attention, and he's got a big roster. And he told me how proud he was. And to this day, I remember that. And it's things like that. I think, again, you don't realize what something you say to an athlete, how that can impact them. But that story is, really special to me. And, Witt and I get to talk plenty still. I bother him about things still. He's happy to talk me through some things. And so anyway.
That's a great example of a coach really living out the mantra of that you are a student athlete, not just the athlete. That's a great example of that. Kudos to him for sure. Wow, man. And again, that impact that it had on you, that's amazing. It had to just kind of really bolster you for not only future academic stuff, your rest of your semesters, but also athletically. Like, man, if this guy cares about that, well, I know he's my coach. He must really care about athletically. So kind of a double boost there. So where did eventually you did coach. So where does coaching come in as a career for you?
So not for a little while, at least. So I did 2 years in Chapel Hill, and then because of the student athlete lifestyle, I really didn't have time to apply for law schools as a senior. I decided to take a gap year, stayed living in Chapel Hill, went to work for a criminal defense attorney in Raleigh, and stuck around and was training a little bit. I ended up getting in good enough shape that I did some rabbiting and made some money doing that. And but I still had this problem with my hamstring. I've never really been the same runner after this injury, even to this day. But I applied to schools, and ultimately decided I'd attend Western Michigan's law school, which is actually in Lansing. It's not in Kalamazoo. And had that gap year, enjoyed myself a little bit, got to travel, and year later, 2006, I think. Is that right? 5. I think 2006. No, is that right? No, 2005. I started law school, and when I got to this is something I think you'll be able to appreciate. When I got to Lansing, I realized for the first time in my life that I was going to be expected to be a student and not a student athlete. And I really wasn't happy about that. So
no one cares about your half-mile PR there.
It was totally irrelevant. So I obviously I knew Michigan State was right down the road. East Lansing and Lansing are just right there. Yeah.
Same town.
So I contacted Walt Drent. You know Walt Drent? Great
Oh,
guy.
love that
Yeah.
guy.
And he was
Yes.
really gracious with his time, and, hey, thanks for contacting us. And I just told him, hey, I'd love to just be around, and, anything you can do to use me. And he's like, that sounds wonderful, but we're full up. We can't take on another coach right now. At the time, Michigan State was split. So he's like, contact Angela Goodman, who was the head coach at the time. And so I did, and she connected me with the coach who's now referred to as Rita Gary of Furman University. And I got spoiled out of my mind with an incredibly talented Michigan State team, an awesome mentor in Rita Gary, who's still a friend, still somebody I, touch base with from time to time. And so I was a first-year law student where they tell you don't do anything but study, but also a volunteer coach at Michigan State. So that was my introduction to coaching. And like I said, spoiled. We made I think our seventh or eighth consecutive national championship in women's cross. And it was a wild experience. I was very nervous. I was kind of a young guy still, and very nervous working just with women. Didn't know how they would accept me or that kind of thing. But I remember one of the first days I was out there, I didn't really know what to do as a coach. So I was just like, well, I'll just go run with the team. I'm still in shape. So we're on a run, we're running through some trails, and they start talking about some things that I thought for sure they had forgotten that I was there. So I kind of cleared my throat really loudly. And they're like, it's cool, coach. You're one of us now. It's no big deal. Jeez,
We'll keep this not even PG. We'll keep this G and not go into those discussions. Yeah. Hey, spoiler alert. Did you get your law degree?
So,
oh man, I didn't realize you were billing me $200 an hour for this interview.
Yeah.
Then. Oh
man, you don't want to walk away from that bill. So did the whole thing. I only did the 1 year at Michigan State, but it planted a seed. I knew how much I enjoyed that, and I knew what it did for me to break up my day. Studying. I'd also been working part time. I was working retail and paying my rent with that, but. Very busy freshman year or first year. Finished up law school. I had met what would become my wife there at law school.
At law school?
One of the biggest benefits of that.
Right, that's right.
And she's from Rockford, Illinois. I don't know if you're familiar with Rockford.
Oh,
Rockford's about halfway between Chicago and Madison. And so anyway, I didn't have any plans. My parents, my dad had actually taken a job overseas. The house in Connecticut was just left vacant. My sisters are older than me. They had started their own families. So I didn't really have any plans, and I liked this girl. So, here I am moving to Chicago. We decided to try Chicago out, and we needed to take a bar exam for, to practice law. So we were studying for that. And again, I'm in this category of, I can't give up being around track and field and running. And so I interviewed at a couple places, talked to the Loyola staff, talked to Northwestern, talked to DePaul, and took an opportunity with DePaul as a part-time paid, I don't know what you want to call it. And so I was studying for the bar exam and coaching and working for a legal aid clinic downtown. So kind of a crazy balance of those things. And just again, spoiled. Got to be around a lot of great people at DePaul and got some great mentoring experience from those coaches. And did that, passed the bar exam, went, and I did about it. Oh, go ahead.
Is the bar exam state dependent, or is it like national? Does that make sense? Like you passed the Illinois bar, so you could have only practiced in Illinois, or is it a national bar and you could practice
it's
anywhere?
State licensure, kind of like you would see like in the medical community. And so the bar exam itself has a multi-state section where all the multiple choice are and anybody in any state would be taking those types of multiple choice. But there's the written section of the exam is specific to the state that you're in.
Because the state laws could be radically different from state to state.
Definitely.
Got it. Okay. Wow. I did not know you had passed the bar exam to be a lawyer. That's amazing.
Yeah, I was still kind of grappling with what I wanted to do, but my wife
So now you passed the ultimate, like, I mean, that's the ultimate thing for someone who goes to law school, and something you've been thinking about for a long time. Now, this just didn't come up your senior year in college. You've been thinking about going the lawyer route for quite often. Now you pass, so maybe the equivalent for a track athlete is you became an All-American. You passed the big test. So now does the All-American go pro? Does the person who passed the bar test go pro and become a lawyer? And you
I
chose.
chose to be a lawyer. Yeah. Yeah.
You did. Okay.
Yeah. It's,
What kind of, any kind of specialization, or do you even
yeah. I mean,
specialize that early?
there, we have some rules of professionalism and ethics that tell you that you're not supposed to use the word specialization, but yes, we all have areas that we're stronger in. So I started off working in legal aid, which is essentially like a not-for-profit organization that provides legal services to low-income people in Chicago. And I got introduced to a really niche area of law called special education law. And I had a very idealist, even coming out of law school, view of the world where I really wanted to help and do right by people. And human rights was international human rights was kind of the end goal, even through the end of law school. But I realized working for the UN or working for Human Rights Watch or some of these bigger organizations was pretty reserved to Ivy League grads and people who had sharper resumes than mine. So I realized legal aid was a great option to work, right here at home and address some issues in the community. And so I got introduced to special ed, and I'll kind of make this a shorter spiel. What I learned is, or what I got myself into practice of, was I was basically an advocate. I was an attorney representing families whose children were in the public or private school setting and whose children had special needs, and their needs were not being met. So there's a whole body of law, both federally and statewide, that addresses the regulations that go into how special needs students are individually served. So it's just something that really spoke to me as far as, being a voice to a very voiceless population. You think about kids are voiceless to begin with, legally speaking, and then kids who have a hard time, potentially have a hard time communicating are even more so. So what felt really satisfied finding an area like that. And that became, and I started working working with a small firm in Rockford. My wife had taken a job as a prosecutor out there where she grew up. So that became kind of the thing that I enjoyed doing, but it didn't always pay the bills. So I did some family law, I did some personal injury, I did some other stuff that would help pay the bills, and did that for a little while. That's
interesting you'd say that, because I think most people would think stereotypically, lawyers are rich. I even made the joke of that you were charging me $200 an hour because, again, it was famous that lawyers have an hourly fee and things like that. So interesting that your experience, and I assume that means it's not unique to you, that there are either certain aspects of lawyers or certain specializations, even though maybe we're not supposed to use that word for lawyers, that have that aspect, that it's not, you don't become a lawyer and automatically start making six figures.
No, not at all. I think the easiest way to explain that is the amount of law schools that exist, the amount of graduates there are, the amount of people that pass the bar exam. It's not really, there aren't a defined number. So there's a supply and demand issue. You have more and more people getting their license. And so it kind of drives down the, longer talk for another day, but yeah, I was never in it for
absolutely,
the money.
So, okay, so you're doing that. So how do we got to get to the big payoff here. How did you get into full-time coaching then?
Yeah.
Where did this come in? This is fascinating, by the way. I'm not minimizing this. I love this is the aspect I think that is most under talked about with coaches. We know of Andrew Craycraft, the Millikin head coach, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say 99% of the people that will listen to this did not know you were a practicing lawyer. That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a really great experience. I did it for about 3.5 years. And the thing that's interesting is I never gave up that part-time position at DePaul. So I was doing something kind of crazy. Okay. I was an of counsel attorney with the firm, which essentially meant that I was my own boss. I used the label of the firm. You know, it was on the letterhead. It was on the business card, but I ran my own business within the firm's setting. You know, shared some overhead expenses with them, malpractice and things like that. So because I could set my own schedule, I would drive the 75 to 80 minutes into the city to be around the team, because I just enjoyed it so much. And those guys really helped me get through the misery of studying 60 to 80 hours a week for the bar exam. That was my one break during the day from studying for the bar exam, was being around the kids and being around a great coaching staff there. So I had never given up that job. I wasn't able to go quite all that often because I had obviously a full-time career. But I came to the realization one day when I got more and more frustrated with the practice of law, that I just wasn't all that happy going to work. And the thing that I looked forward to every day was going and being around the team. And I had come so far from being the person who had some self-conscious or self-confidence issues with my academic and intellectual ability to, I just passed the bar exam. I'm practicing law. I'm finding success. You know, I'm having to basically try cases against attorneys who have 25 to 30 years more experience than I did. All those confidence issues, all those things that I had struggled with as a younger version of myself, I'd overcome. And I knew it was because of my athletic background. I knew it was because of my, and it's maybe especially collegiate experience, because I think those are some of the moments where you really, really have those moments of revelation. So yeah, I knew I owed something to the sport, and I knew that I loved being around it. And my wife is an amazing person, and she and I spoke one day, and she said, I fully support.
Were you married at this time?
No.
Okay, so still not there on that aspect. Okay, so what was the catalyst to take the jump into full-time coaching?
Just talking to my folks were really supportive of it. I told them that I was thinking about it. You know, DePaul had already kind of mentioned that they were going to make some transitions, and a full-time opportunity was going to become available. And so I was just really having fun with the coaching and was not enjoying the law practice. So as much as it hurt, because I knew I'd be paying student loans off for the rest of my life, and you know, accepting a little bit of a lesser paycheck. Just having the support of the people around me and following my heart and knowing that I wanted to get back to what I enjoyed and just pass the lesson along. You know, I became something because of this, and I want to share that with other people, and I want to make sure that young people see the value in it. You know, so yeah, we decided to do that and became a full-time coach at DePaul, and the rest is history, I suppose.
Wow. So how long were you at DePaul?
It was six or so years I was there.
Yeah. And then from DePaul straight to your current
2014, at the end of that year, my wife had an opportunity down here in Decatur, Illinois. I knew nothing about Central Illinois other than Champaign was down here. She had an opportunity. She's been a career prosecutor, and there were some frustrations up in her office in Rockford. So anyway, she had an opportunity down here. I had the personal opportunity to go and work for NCSA. It's a recruiting service. I'm sure you've heard of them. And they allow a lot of their staff to work remotely. So I thought, well, you know, I guess I'll step away from coaching for a while. I want to support my wife in this great opportunity she has. So we moved down to Decatur, with me thinking, you know, I may not coach again, or if I do, it'll be years down the road. I don't know. But I can still be around the sport. So I did NCSA for almost a full calendar year. I think it was about 10 months. And it was a great experience. I learned a lot about Division II, Division III that I had never been around. I learned about even things at the state level, because our clientele, you know, were national and international student athletes, and spent a lot of time on the phone. That's what you do at NCSA. I basically helped high schoolers get recruited to college, and even got to you know, kind of grow my network of other coaches that I became familiar with. And so did that for 10 months, and I had introduced myself to George Pincock, who, do you know George?
Yeah, by name.
He's
I
at
don't know him
A&M
by name.
Commerce, Texas A&M Commerce, and is a heck of a
Right.
coach.
Right.
He was coaching the Millikin program here, and I had told him, I'm around. If I can help, if I can be around the team. So I did a little bit of volunteering.
Similar to what you did with Walt at Michigan State.
Exactly.
Can I just be around?
You can't
Make
get rid of
yourself
me.
available.
Is
That's
kind
a
of what
good
it comes
lesson.
down to. So.
Well, that sounds eerily like lawyers too, though. So.
Jeez, I didn't even see that parallel, but you're absolutely right. Yeah. So yeah, that was exactly right. So anyway, I spent a little bit of time around the team. It wasn't nearly as much as I wanted to. I was pretty busy with the NCAA thing, and my wife was pregnant when we moved down to Decatur with our first child. So my daughter was born, and I had done less and less with Millikin's program, and kind of out of nowhere in October of 15, George called me and he said, I think you should take this program over. I'm going to recommend that, the AD give you a call, and, we discuss you as an option at least. And
wow, you weren't even a full-time assistant or anything.
And like I said, I'd really scaled back. I'd done a lot more in the spring of that year. I had hardly been around the team, if at all, that fall. And so yeah, that was a huge eye-opening experience, just because I thought I was out of it and didn't really know what the future held, and I was a newly minted father at the time, and so so yeah, I had an opportunity to interview here, and was so thankful to be able to get back into coaching, and had a lot of lessons to learn becoming a first-time head coach. But it's been a blast. That's the support that I have here, the community that we have on a small campus, because I really hadn't been on a campus this small before, is unbelievable.
So how many years have you been at
So I
Millikin
took
as the head
over
coach
in December of 15. So my official anniversary of 5 years was, is that right? 4 years, 5 years?
4, yeah, will be at the end of this year then, if that's right. December of 15, yeah. What's interesting to me in a lot of the conversations you and I have had, you really have a big heart for Millikin, the administration you work with and then also the conference that you're in. Tell me what it means to you as the head coach of Millikin.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. It's like I said, I just felt so much support here. It's just such a welcoming community where everybody's here to lift each other up. And I felt that from the very beginning, and then it's been nothing short of that since. So we have an amazing university president, Pat White, who is a big supporter of our athletic program. And then Craig White, our athletic director, he's as good a person as you could ever ask for to work for. He understands track and field. He spent I think about 18 years at the University of Georgia in Athens and oversaw track and field. And he can talk track any day. In fact, Craig White.
That's good to hear.
Kind of a funny story that you'll appreciate. Craig White has a background in sports psychology and worked with a lot of the Georgia athletes, including. And he said this name to me as if I wouldn't know who it was. He's like, "Do you know Reese Hoffa?" And I'm like, "Get out of here," So him and Reese are good friends, and I know, right?
Yeah, who? Reese?
Let me Google that one.
I'm not sure, and I'm sure they have a great relationship, but knowing Reese, I'm not sure anybody who Reese has ever met is not a friend of Reese's. He is one of the gregarious guys out there. So that's really interesting. So you're on Millikin, and this athletic director says he knows track. You're like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, guy that I worked with was, just a guy named Reese Hoffa. You probably don't even know him.
Yeah. No, it's funny. He definitely, he gets us. He gets it. So tremendous support from him, tremendous support from the school. When I talk to recruits about, why this is a special place, I tell them the feeling of welcome as a staff member is phenomenal. I can't even imagine how much you feel as a student. It's such a community here. So yeah, it's been really nice. We have no wants. We have great facilities. And so it's been great. And yes, I love our conference. The CCIW, I've been around a couple of years to see multiple examples of conference championships and just interacting with the coaches, but the level of professionalism and camaraderie and sportsmanship is on another level here. A lot of the coaches have been at their programs for many years. I think that might help, but they're just good people. They're really good people, and they have their kids and the sport at the top level of priority. When our program has gotten better every year, and it's only been met with congratulatory remarks and hey, you're doing a great job there. And, there's no feeling of we feel threatened or what are you doing here or why it's always been this great camaraderie. And I see it trickle down to their athletes, and I just want to give so much credit to the other coaches in our conference that their athletes are a product of the coaches themselves and how they approach the sport and how they value it. So,
for those of those of us who don't know much about the CCIW, maybe tell us a few of the teams, or maybe a real trivia question: can you name all the teams in your conference? And then, are there a couple of coaches, a few of the coaches that kind of stand out to you that exemplify this positive competitiveness that you?
Sure. So, 9-team conference. We're the southernmost conference. Illinois Wesleyan is just north of us. We've got Augustana out in the Quad Cities area. We've got Elmhurst, North Central, Wheaton College, North Park, Carthage, Carroll. I think that I just named all of them. Pretty sure.
Those are some good programs.
Yeah, it's
there now.
Very competitive. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
There's people that like to refer to us. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but they like to refer to us as the Division III version of the Big Ten. But yeah,
okay.
it's a great conference. It's hard to single out any particular staff or coach. Scott Bradley at Wheaton is and Wally, his distance assistant, just great people. Always pat on the back. You're doing a great job. Asking about individual athletes on the team, asking about my staff. Wally, the distance coach, is such a nice guy. I guess he has this practice. He's been doing this for some time where he has a stash. You'll like this. He has a stash of Snickers bars. I don't know where he keeps them. I don't know if he's got a bag on him or what, but Wally will just appear out of nowhere in the middle of a 2-day conference meet where everybody's exhausted and just slip you a Snickers bar. It's the funniest thing. And again, last year I had no idea this is what he was doing. And I was dying. Right. I was dead. The emotional energy that was being poured into this meet. And I hadn't eaten, never something I'd advise. I'm always getting on my staff about we got to eat during the meet. You got to hydrate. And I was totally contradicting everything and being a hypocrite. And I was dying. And he literally appeared like an angel and snuck me the Snickers bar. And I thought it was like an out-of-body experience. I was like, is this really happening? Did he really just give me the Snickers? Because I just turned into Joe Pesci or whatever it is from the Snickers commercial.
Right.
Yeah, they're just great. So the Wheaton staff is awesome, but all of them, North Central, Al Carius is a legend for a reason. He's everything. Mm-hmm. He's everything that they say he is and more, and you see it in his athletes. You see it in the coaches he works with. The whole conference. We lost Paul Olson from Augie, to retirement, but he was at the convention this year and gave a talk that gave me chills the entire time. It's an amazing thing. And people had told me, Pincock, when he was leaving, Millikin told me, hey, this is a special conference. And I thought, these are good teams. And I had no idea how far reaching that statement really went. So I've really enjoyed it.
It's interesting. You mentioned two legends, Olson over at Augie, and then Al Carius, and really Al Carius with Frank Grammatico and the other. Cluckhorns. That whole staff is maybe legendary. It's interesting to me as we explore more and more of this podcast form with Gill Athletics Connections, is making sure we keep posterity with some of our coaches that are nearing the end of their careers. I come from the era of the Clyde Hart and Jim Bush and guys like that. But, they're even reaching further back to the Dellingers and, even people I can't even name because they're before my era of coaching and track and field, of making sure that we're capturing their essence, their lessons, their passions to pass on to the current and future state of track and field coaches that are going to come out there. You yourself are still a pup as it relates to coaching track and field. And there's going to be guys and gals that are younger than you that are coaching now and will be coaching next year and in 5 years. Really important, I think, for us to make sure we are imparting the lessons that our elder statesmen and women coaches have gone through. Life is trial and error, which includes error. So how do we take some of the lessons that these amazing guys and gals have learned and try to get them up to speed to today's young coaches, so maybe they don't make as many errors, or actually can make different errors and learn
passing that on.
That's interesting. Yeah, I had a chance to sit down at the convention with the majority of the North Central staff early at our social. It was just them, and was struck by the number of alumni of North Central that are on that staff. And we weren't doing the podcast back then, but it really struck me like it would be super interesting to get all of them together and do a podcast about them and how they built an amazing culture. I think most places would want to try to learn from that type of culture that they've built specifically there at Northwestern. And again, your conference, I guess I didn't really think about who all is in that conference, but you talked about the staff up at Wheaton, who, they were one of the first schools to purchase our big Thor hammer cage, which is huge. Unfortunately, it was under bad circumstances with the accident that occurred there. But again, very forward-thinking staff there as it relates to their team and their program. And obviously, it appears that you fit right in with this, Andrew. I'm imagining that if I were interviewing one of those other coaches in your conference, they'd be mentioning you in the same breath that you're mentioning these other coaches
I would hope.
of yours.
I think that there's just it's humbling being around coaches who've accomplished what a lot of these guys have, and just with such class. I don't know how much I don't know if I'm as good as they are as far as the class part of it. I try to be, but yeah, it's inspiring, and it just kind of keeps you accountable. Look at how this guy's handling. Look at how this coach is handling. You mentioned Kerry Cluckhorn, just amazing person, so gracious all the time, and is running a national caliber program there that gets better every year. Just it's hard to compare yourself with people like that, or even think that you're anywhere in the same conversation.
Sure.
But that's kind of a little bit what I've been joking with them about, that as a program, we're just glad to be part of the conversation. We had to work our butts off to get there. But,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure she would say this, and Al Carius for sure, to speak for him, which is always dangerous. It's a step-by-step process. It's a brick and then another brick and then another brick, and then you build a house. You don't build a house overnight. And Carrie and the rest of that staff, they by no means were who they are today when they first started, or when they were 5 years, 6 years into coaching a program. And I think it's pretty evident, Andrew, from having known you, over the past few years here now, and definitely through this conversation, your heart towards this sport and what it did for you, that's a really compelling story for the community that you have there at Millikin, for your family, and for the hundreds and thousands of athletes that you'll affect, whether you coach them directly or you advise them indirectly as you go through your career. But it was definitely just heartwarming to hear your story of perseverance, of going after what you wanted to accomplish. You wanted to be a lawyer, and you did. I honestly thought the story was that you did not go to law school. That would be. There's a lot of people who wanted to be lawyers or doctors and such that didn't actually pull the trigger for one reason or another. And you actually went through it while coaching, while establishing a relationship with your wife and having children now. And by the way, what's it like being married to a prosecutor? You must get away with nothing.
That's a good way to
at
put
home.
it. Yeah, she's She is, I mentioned being accountable. Yeah, I, I married up. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. She's an amazing person. And,
Yeah.
being the spouse of a coach, we all know it's hard, and she's so patient with it. And, we have two little ones at home, and, that's changed, the dynamic quite a bit as far as, we got to manage our time. But yeah, she's amazing. And I needed validation from her as much as anybody that this was the right move. And she didn't hesitate. She knew, I mean, she just knows me and knows that I wasn't happy doing the other thing. So yeah, it was cool. She's a tough cookie. And, don't ever practice criminal defense and be in her courtroom, because you're dead in the water. It's done. It's over.
Oh man. Yeah. That's funny. As we explore different guests, and obviously through our passion of track and field, and for me, my passion of collegiate track and field because of my background, probably 90% of our guests on the Connections podcast will be collegiate track and field coaches. But I definitely, my passion and heart and love is towards college coaches as they are as a people, not just coach. And so when the time is right and the person is right, I'm very excited about one day having the spouse of a college track coach on here as well. I see spouses of coaches around the country when we're at meets and convention and stuff like that. And honestly, every time I see one, I just look at them and be like, yeah, I know coaches have a heart of gold. You must have a heart of gold. Patience like nobody's business. Having been a former college track coach for 10 years of my own, I know the struggles and tribulations, and I know you ain't getting paid enough to make it worthwhile on the dollar sense, but you're a good example of getting paid that's worth it on the impact on young people. That's the real paycheck, and one day maybe they'll accept that for your mortgage, and so we'll all be rich track and field coaches. So Andrew, hey man, thanks a lot spending time with me. I really appreciate this conversation in today's new world that we have going on right now. We didn't even touch on what is going on in the world right now. And I think, honestly, that's a little bit refreshing, to be honest with you. I think we all know that we can't turn on the news or social media or even to our spouses without coronavirus, COVID-19 coming up. So really refreshing to really delve deep into your athletic background, your academic background, which I thought was extremely interesting as well. So again, can't say thank you enough for your time and what you do as a track and field coach for the collegiate side of the world here.
It's been my pleasure, but the thanks needs to go your way, Mike. I think a lot of us coaches see how you help a very, very important conversation to continue to happen about, the good and bad side of coaching. There's some real struggles that we go through on a personal level and otherwise, and they're not talked about. And I think you're trying your best to keep the conversation going so that we can benefit from that. So, yeah, the big thanks to you, and enjoyed having the opportunity to talk to you on here, and excited to listen to the other podcasts.
Well, that means the world to me, man. And I know you said you had to go 45 minutes ago. So thanks for extending your time with me. And again, thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thanks again.
Wow. What a great interview with Andrew. Man, super fascinating. Really cool to see how he got into coaching, really out of a want and desire to give back to a sport that helped him achieve academic possibilities that he maybe naturally wasn't inclined to or thought he ever would be able to achieve. So, man, just had a great time with Andrew. And listener, if you've made it this far, man, I really appreciate you joining us. Your time and attention is one of the most valuable things you can give us here at Gill Athletics. So with this long format type podcast of an hour plus, it's no small deal that you spend your time with us. So really want to show some gratitude towards you and what you do listening to this podcast, and really hope you enjoyed connecting with Andrew as much as I did. Make sure you are subscribed to the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. That's the best way to be notified when we publish a new interview. We don't do it on a regular schedule. We do it as coaches make themselves available to us, which leads me to thinking about you right now, Coach. If you or someone else that you know would like to be a guest on a future episode, just drop me an email. My email address is hurdle@gillathletics.com. That's right, hurdle@gillathletics.com. Bit of a hurdle nerd I am. In the meantime, hope you feel led to share this podcast on your social media network of choice. It'd mean the world if you shared it on your Instagram or Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever else we're doing out there in social media land. And really look forward to you joining us next time when we once again connect you with another great track and field coach.